Alright.
I'm gonna do the whole dance.
For the first section, you have to identify the x and y intercepts. So you needed to write both of these terms equal. Yes. No, you can just write it. Divide, I'm sorry, set both of these equal, both terms equal. Right this side. Second. And divide. Okay. You weren't the only person. And then make sure you're writing them as ordered pairs. But do that for both. Yes, sir.
When is y equal, you put x equal 4. When is y equal?
Here, what was I solving for?
But here I did y equals 4 and you said I got it right.
That may have been me grading 100 and plus tests, and I put it right. There might have been a mistake on my part.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
So you got 3D. Accept that.
Oh my god.
Since it was this easy.
That's what I'm saying. I just did a whole.
Yeah, some of you did a lot more than you needed to.
I did all this for the free.
I did plus 2y.
At least I know how to solve
Exactly,
it.
that's what I'm saying.
Many of you, I think, did the same thing where you converted it, which was fine to give me the y-intercept, but not so much for the x-intercept.
I did y equals 4.
Yeah, that was completely my bad. It should have been the other way
I'm
around.
gonna go to the problem.
So let me think of where I'm going to
Sorry. Number 2, same thing. Set both of them equal to this number. Divide. So your ordered pair would be negative 6, 0.
I think we got this part now. This part is
And number 2. So again, if you did not get these right, you should be fixing them either on that paper or somewhere else. That way you know what to do for the test.
I did it right, it's just I didn't work it.
Wait, are we allowed to use because
That's why we're going through it right now, so you can fix this.
I'll think of the test and stuff?
No. So your x-intercept for this one would be negative 3, 0. And then your y-intercept, divide those both by negative 1. So it would be 0, negative 15. And then do the exact same thing for this last one. So 4, 0 would be your x-intercept. And 0, 2 would be your y-intercept.
Mister, I have a question.
Yes.
So for 2y divided by 6, that's 4.
Which number are you talking about?
No, the first one, number 1.
I'm sorry. You're bringing up this one?
The other one when you solve for x.
24. No, that's a floor.
Yeah,
It's 24 divided by 6.
I couldn't see that. Yeah, I thought that was 2y too.
Yeah.
It's negative x. How do you make it positive again? What happens if I do this? If I divide it just by 1, what happens?
it's still negative.
It doesn't change, right? So it stays negative x. So again, just if you get that bothers you, it bothers me without a when it's just a negative x. Just go ahead and put a 1 under it. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 is what with x. Just put a 1 if you don't see if there's no number in front of the variable. Just put a 1 sometimes. I think that may help. If you need it. You don't need
For number 5, if you did this, that kind of answered the question, but not how I wanted you to answer them, because you needed to write it in coordinate form. You should have had two ordered pairs, one for your x-intercept, one for your y-intercept. So if you combine those, that is not an intercept. So you should have the point 1, 0 and the point 0, negative 1. If you put the point 1, negative 1, that's this point right here, and it's not on this line. And it's not an intercept.
Oh.
There needs to be two separate points. This one, the x-intercept was negative 2, 0. The y-intercept was 0, 4. For 7, the y-intercept was at 0, negative 2. The x-intercept, you didn't have one, so none, nada, nothing, doesn't exist, doesn't apply. Any of those that you like, put that. Undefined is a slope, so we should not be putting that. 0, 0 is an actual point that is not on this line, so we should also not be putting that.
Did you put the X instead of it?
Oh, I missed the
Say that
the
one
same
more
thing
time.
on here.
Yeah, the X again.
The x-intercept, you can just put x, none, or something like that.
I did the same thing on here. You said it was right too.
Yeah, I said mine was 125 on
That's the last one that you're reading myself.
It's not. I'm talking about this one.
I'm talking about this one though.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Alright, so X goes first.
For the last one, x-intercept is 5, y-intercept is 2. Yes, yes.
What's the 2 up top? Oh, so the only one I got wrong is 5. I mean, yeah.
Also, when I'm going around the room checking them, I miss a lot of things. When I grade them individually, I usually go back and see it.
It's okay, Miss Story. I will still be seeing you on Thursday.
Okay.
Whatever.
For 9, 10, 11, and 12 on the split page, some of you were like doing way more work than you really should have been doing. Find 2 points on this line where it crosses the grid line exactly. It could have been any of these 2 points.
This is
Count up and over if you're reading this right, or down and left. If this is going up 1 over 2, so it was a positive 1/2.
Doesn't matter which, you just have to pick 2 points. Just two, they can be any 2. It's how do you get from one to the other, so.
If you remembered your Quebec for this one, this is a horizontal line, so this has to have a 0 slope.
Oh, is it 0?
It was 0, yes. For 11, same thing. Find 2 points that cross the grid lines exactly. Be very careful because sometimes they look like they cross this, but don't actually. And then count. So from here to here, this is going down 3 to the right 1. So that would be -3 over 1, but simplify it.
So going up and down is first and then going side to side.
Yes.
Wait.
And if you scroll back up to 10 again.
Press them on
What happens if it's just a straight line down?
That's undefined slope. And then find 2 points that meet exactly on the grid line. Any of these points. From here, this is going up 3 and to the right 4. So 3/4 was your slope for that one. Questions on those four before we continue? I'll scroll back up if needed. For these two, you needed your slope formula. One.
Are we gonna come in from the test?
No.
No? Well, are we gonna need it?
You're gonna need to know the formulas. So
Okay.
for this, if you switch your x's and y's, it messed your slope up. If you switch these, like it said y1 and y2, as long as it said x1 and x2, that was fine. If when writing or labeling these, if you switch these as x and y and put y and then x, you basically switch these also. So make sure you don't do that. So in this formula, this would be 5 minus -4 over -8 minus 10. This would become a plus, so positive 9. This would become just negative 18 and simplify. And then do the same thing for the other one. -1 minus a -3, 16 minus a -4. You end up adding for both. So you get positive 2 over positive 20, which simplifies to 1/10. Questions on those two? For 15 and 16, you just needed to know that this was your slope. There was no work for you to do.
Right here, wrong.
What do you think about it?
I said why I get it wrong. I didn't write it down.
Okay, I have a question. So if that's the slope, number one would be the, just like, on 15, the one would be the what?
The y intercept.
Okay, I keep getting those confused, that's why.
The number by itself is the y intercept. The one in front of x is your slope in this format only.
In this, okay.
So for 17 and 18, you cannot assume that 5 and 1 are our slopes for these. We need to solve them. So for 15, you could have either subtracted 5x, since this is 0, or added y, either or. I'm going to subtract because if you did this one, that's what most of you did. And then divide both sides by -1. Once it's back in that slope-intercept form, now you can see what your slope is.
So it was 5.
It was 5, but we can't assume that.
Okay, because it was 0, it was 5.
That's not necessarily why it was 5. Because if I did it the other way, we still would have got 5. I look so sloppy.
It looks so much easier to do that way.
Yeah.
You could do it that way, yes. But if this was a plus, then your slope would be negative.
So the only way you did it was negative.
So if this was a plus instead, you would just subtract it by that.
And then what if you did it like with the y? Oh.
You wouldn't need to do it with the y,
Indeed.
because the y is by itself.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna leave that, but that's not.
I'm learning more now that I
You just
did
made that up.
the whole of the
Okay. Same thing for 18. Get y by itself. I'm gonna switch these so it's starting to look like slope-intercept formula form. And then divide everything by -3. So here, this would become a positive, this would become a positive 1/3 minus 4. So your slope would be 1/3.
It would be a positive.
Yes. Because we subtracted and our y was negative. So it ended up being a positive.
I think I'm gonna have this in the bag.
Other slope questions before we move on to graphing?
I got this in the bag.
Negative energy into the air.
Yeah, get out. You can come out.
Okay, yeah, don't do that. Okay, for these, start at your y-intercept. Most of you, if you got these wrong, is because you started on the x-axis instead of the y-axis, or you switched your slope. So don't do either of those things. Start at your y-intercept of 3, and then use your slope. This is a positive slope, so I could go up 5, but in this graph, I don't have space. So instead, I'm going to go down 5. Because this is positive, I also have to go to the left so that the negative over negative still makes that positive. If you could go down again, do that. In this case, we've run off the graph. And then we can connect those 2 points. That was not good at all. And then repeat for each of these. Start at your y-intercept. Use your slope. This is now a negative slope, so only one of the directions needs to be negative. So you can go down, but then to the right, or you can go up and to the left. So up and left 4, down and right 4. I can't go further, so that would be my line. For 21, remember your koi box. Since this is a y equals, this is going to be a horizontal line at y equals 1. So start there and then make that a horizontal line. And then the last one, start at your y-intercept. You again have a negative slope. I can't go up, so I have to go down, and then I have to go to the right, because only one of these can be negative. And then connect those points.
You see why you're doing that, just because the graph isn't big enough to go the other direction. I mean, you can make a graph bigger and then and go the other direction, going up 7.
Are we allowed to make our graph bigger?
I
need some for real.
I would say just grab, I have graph paper that has bigger graphs if you wanted to do that, but you also don't need to do that. Because the bigger the graph, you have to fill it up more. So I'll let that be up to you. Any other graphing questions before we move on to writing? Writing was the most missed section, so make sure you're paying attention if that was you. For the first 2, you needed to find your slope, find your y-intercept, put those 2 together in an equation. So for this one, your y-intercept was at 5. Your slope, find 2 points that cross the grid lines exactly, any of these points will work.
So then one.
Negative one. Because you're going down one into the right one. And then your equation would be y equals negative 1x or negative x plus 5.
Oh my god.
24, same thing. Find your
So is the B the X?
b is your y-intercept.
What is the
M is your slope. So in front of x, there's a negative 1.
Yeah, I know that. How did you find that on the graph?
Find the negative 1.
Negative 1 into the 5. Like I got it.
5 was right here on the y-axis. We're looking for something that crosses that. Then you have to look for other points that cross the grid lines, which happen to be any of these points. And then discount. So if I saw this one, it'd be down 1 to the right one.
So it's negative 1.
But if, let's say I didn't see any other point and I just saw this one, it would be down 5 and right 5, which would still simplify.
But the slope itself does not have an x in it. It's not negative 1x. It's just negative 1. So sometimes I'm seeing you guys put the x together and the slope. The slope is what's in front of the x.
So for the next one, our y-intercept is at the origin, so 0. Again, find points that cross these grid lines exactly and count. So this would be up 3 to the right 1. So our slope would be a positive 3. You could put y equals 3x, or you could put plus 0, either or. Questions on those two? For 25 and 26, they gave you the slope and the y-intercept. You just had to put them in slope-intercept form. Put them together.
Oh, Miss Dory. It's looking easy, Miss Dory.
That part should be.
Okay.
For 27 through 30, you have to use your point slope formula. They give you a point, they give you the slope, put both of those things in, and you get your slope intercept form. So that would be simplify and then distribute if necessary. This is just 1 being multiplied to everything, so nothing would change. And then get everything away from y by subtracting. So y equals x minus 4 was the equation. If you use the graph or did not use point slope formula, those methods work, but that's not what I want to see. And then do the same thing for the other one.
Is it those shorter or longer?
Same. The same amount.
Friend, you're over it. It's low key.
So multiplying this would be positive. So 5 doesn't really cancel. You get positive 15 over 5, so positive 3. If you put negative 3, that kind of messed up your work. So negative 3/5 x plus 1 should have been your answer. And then for the last section, you needed to find your slope And then use that in your point slope formula. So for this one, it would be -5 minus 3 over 5 minus 3, -8 over 2, or -4. Yes. Take either of those points to put back into your point slope formula. A lot of you that did this chose this point, so we're going to do that one. So y minus 3 equals -4 times x minus 3. Distribute. And get y by itself.
Oh no. Oh.
So y equals -4x plus 15 was your final answer for that one?
Is 15 the F or the B? 15.
It's that. It's
F
the
or
B.
B?
It's the B.
The B.
Find your slope of the next one. You would eventually be adding. So this would be 6 over 4. Simplify that to get 3 over 2. You could pick either of these points, put them into the point slope formula, and find your y-intercept, but you didn't have to because they gave you your y-intercept. So if that happens, you can go ahead and put that in your equation. Questions on those two before we do the last two, and then I'll be done talking.
If you're given the slope, if the problem gives you the slope, are you given the M? You have the M if you're given the slope.
Yes.
Anybody for $1,000.
What was the question? Yes.
If the problem gives you the slope, does it give you the letter M to put your equation?
Yes.
Just said yeah.
All right, Lawrence, you.
Isn't M the slope?
Man, like Kelly got in the bag.
M is the slope.
Okay.
Get over the A++.
For this part, I'm going to show you the easiest way to do this. So plot your x and y-intercept. They gave you those. Then you can count your slope. This goes up 1 to the right 5. They gave you your y-intercept. So put those two things in an equation. I can't write today. I was supposed to say 1/5 x minus 1. And then do the same thing for the other one. Plot your 2 points. Count your slope. This goes up 5 and to the right 1. And it gave us our y-intercept. So this would be 5x plus 5.
Let me ask you a tougher question. If you're given the y-intercept, do you have the B?
Yes.
Yes, no?
Yes.
Answer yes. If you're given the y-intercept, you have the B. You should write y equals mx plus b on the top of all these problems. And just, all you're looking for is the y and the b on most of them. Y-intercept, B, slope, M. Before you go to sleep tonight.